Let's make a beautiful responsive carousel slider. This would be responsive, which would run on app as well as on a web browser. Okay, so before we get started, make sure that you have downloaded the link from the code link, or the code from the link below, which I've given below in the video description, and install it. And after that, you should run this command flutter get pub. With this, you will be able to download some dependencies for the carousel slider, because we are going to use a plugin for this, and the plugin is this one. It's a good plugin, and it saves your life and a lot of coding. Okay, all right, and after that, you make sure we come over here and we delete this unnecessary code. We don't need this part, so let's go ahead and delete them. And then we need to import a new class, and we'll call it destination carousel, but the class is not there yet. We need to create a new file for this class. Let's go ahead and create a new file. We'll call it carousel.dart, and it would be a stateful class. So yeah, that's it. Now we need to import some of the other libraries, I guess this one. And regarding this key problem, you may delete it, it should work, or you can add a keyword which called required. And now if it doesn't work like this, then you may need to delete that. Let's go ahead and import this class first. Okay, now it says is add keyword required. Okay, so let's work like this for now. Okay, so now this one has to do with the Flutter or Dart version, different version. They have different ways to solve this problem, so it depends on which version you're using. Okay, now that's perfect. So let's run it. Before we run it, actually we can change the debug mode here. Show debug checker mode banner is false. Okay, perfect. Now we'll run it on the phone over here, and as well as on the terminal. And from terminal, we'll launch our browser. Okay, to launch the browser, you run this command flutter run -d chrome. So this will launch our application as a web app on the browser. Okay, so it may take a bit of time to load, so we can do rest of the work. Okay, now let's take a look at our assets folder. Okay, the browser has launched, but nothing is there yet, and the app has launched on the phone as well, but nothing is there yet. Okay, I think it got killed, but let's run it one more time. Let's take a look at the asset folder. We have some images. These images from Africa to South America, some of these images, actually 6 images, would be displaying on the carousel slider, so they are in asset folder. The first thing we need to do, we need to create the path for these images, which we should do it in a code, so which I have already done. So I'll copy paste the code over here. As you can see, this is a list variable which called images, and it has the image path and image name itself. And then we also have places name, and these places names are corresponding with this image names. Okay, yeah, so what do we want to do in the carousel? We want to show these images, and on the image we want to be able to write this place's name. So that's what we want to do. Okay, all right, so now the path and images are there, names are there. Okay, so we can go ahead and start our actual coding. And because this is a black container right now, let's change the color. So we'll do colors.white. Okay, and now we will import the library, material library, which is needed. It did. And next we'll do a padding here, const edge only top 50. Okay, now let's run our app. Okay, well, now on the terminal we can hit button R from the keyboard, and it will relaunch our web browser, but nothing is there yet, but it just a Flutter demo. There's nothing to show yet. Okay, all right, the next thing we want to do, we want to import our package or plugin path for slider, carousel slider. So let's go ahead and do it. So this is the carousel path. plugin path, and so the slider is there. So now we can go ahead and use it. Okay, well, to use that, we will use a property first, which is called child, and then we'll call stack widget. We are using stack widget because our slider would be here, and on the slider we'll have text. So two widgets, they are overlapping onto each other, so that's why we use stack widget. Okay, now stack widget takes children. Okay, the first child would be here, carousel slider, this one. Okay, now it takes two parameters. First one is items, and second one is options. Okay, now for this one we need to create our items. These items are the images. Okay, these images, but it doesn't really take image path. What it does is it takes a child widget. Okay, over here we need to supply, so we need to supply here image widgets. So over here we have 6 images. We will supply 6 image widgets, but we should not do them manually, because you don't want to write 6 image widgets one by one here. Then the code would be very large, the file. We don't want it. So what we could do, we can generate image widgets in a for loop, and then use that for loop over here. Then it will automatically run 6 times based on your image numbers. Okay, so hopefully it makes sense. Now, so let's go ahead and do it. Okay, so we'll call a function. We'll create a function, and the function return type would be list, and the list itself should be widget type, and we'll call the function generate images tiles. Okay, like this. Now it should return something. What it should return? It should return a list, but this list should contain image widgets. Be careful though, here we just have image path, they are not widgets, so we'll return over here image widgets. So first we need to generate those image widgets, and then we'll return them as a list. So to get the hang of these images, first we'll get this images variable, which is at the top, this one. Okay, and then we'll turn them into a map. Okay, and then we'll return something over here. Okay, return widget, and then we'll convert all of them to list. So at the end of this call, this would return image widgets, and it will contain 6 image widgets. Okay, now how to do that? It's more like JavaScript or PHP map function or Java map function. They are all same. It takes a value, we'll call this value element, and then over here it returns a function. Okay, so in our case we'll return a built-in function which is called clip_rect. So it clips a rectangular using border, radius border, that's why clip_rect. Okay, and now within it, it takes child. So let's go ahead and call a child. So within this child we'll use images.asset, this widget, and this widget, the name, as you see from the parameter, that it takes a path. So what is our path? Our path is element. And what is element? Once again, element is the path, each of this. Okay, so as it maps through, it takes each of them, so each of them is element. So eventually element is our image path. Okay, and now we can decorate a little bit over here, and we'll use fit property. So we'll do box fit dot cover so that it looks nice. Okay, and after that, as you can see, clip rect, r means radius, so we need to supply border radius. We'll do border radius dot circular, say we'll do 15.0. Okay, and I guess that's pretty much it with our generate image tiles. All it did, it returned image widgets in a loop. It created image widgets in a loop and returned them as a list. Okay, so now we'd be able to use them. So each time we call this function, it would give us 6 image widgets. All right, okay, so now we can supply it over here. Now let's do it. We'll call generate image tiles. Perfect. Now for this property options, we'll have a built-in function which we can call. It's called carousel options. Once again, this is coming from the plugin itself. Okay, now it takes a few options. The first one is called enlarge page, and we'll do true. Okay, now with this we are almost done with our image carousel slider. We could go ahead and run it. Okay, and now let's do the same on the browser. Before we go, let's see. Wow, it's working right now. So as you see, images are there. We can manually move them left and right. Beautiful, perfect. So now if it is false, let's see what happens. Okay, yeah, so as you see, you can play with this property to fit your need. Okay, all right, but I'll go ahead with true. Okay, now let's go and see on the browser. Okay, so our browser is over here. Yes, perfect. It's also working on the browser. As I said, that is a responsive carousel slider because it works both on phone and the browser. And if you do like this, as you can see, okay, you can as you see that the sizes it change automatically. All right, okay, perfect. So now what do you do? Now, there are a few other settings that we could do. First one is autoplay equal true. Okay, so now it will start to play automatically once we restart it, and then we, as you see, it worked, and on the browser it should work as well. Hit R. Yes, so now it's working, it's auto playing. Perfect, that's what we wanted. All right, okay, so the other thing we could do, we can set up the aspect ratio if you don't want this size next to it. Like you see those two sides, they're coming out, so we can solve this problem with aspect ratio. We do aspect ratio 18:8. It's up to your needs that how you play with it. Okay, so let's go ahead and restart it. As you see, those two sides are gone perfect. And now let's see it on the browser. The browser should be same. Perfect, that's gone as well. Beautiful. So our slider is working. Okay, so the next thing we want to do, we want to show this text on the image. Okay, text on the image. So our text is this few text, we need to show them on the image. So what we could do, we can call a widget which is called aspect ratio. This is the default widget built in Flutter. Okay, so now we'll use the same aspect ratio as the images, so that it fits correctly on the image and so that it looks beautiful. Okay, now we'll use a child widget within it, child property, and we'll call a center widget, and then we'll again use child widget and use the text widget. We'll use child property and call text widget, and within it we'll say we'll supply a dummy text over here for now. Okay, now go ahead and run it. So a few things though, as you see, we use a center widget, so it will put everything in the center of the slider. Okay, like that. If you don't do text, it would put it left or right like this. Okay, so with center, as you know, you can center things. All right, so next one is this. You see now it looks ugly, this underlines and the text color. We can get rid of those things, so we need to use a style over here, style property, and we'll call text style widget, and it takes some properties. So first one is, say, decoration. We'll use text decoration dot none. So with this we get rid of the text over here, and at the same time we can use text color. So we don't want that color, we can use colors dot white, and after that we could do say font size. Okay, because right now the font size is pretty big for this mobile phone, right? So because as we are in the aspect ratio, we can also take care of the font size over here. To readjust the font size on the on mobile phone or smaller devices, we can use media query of context, then we'll take the size of this screen, and then from there we'll take the width, and after that we'll divide it by 2. So now let's go ahead and see the result. Perfect, so it's a bit smaller. We can try 15. Okay, now it's working correctly. So all we did is we took the whole width and then divided it by 15. So whatever screen size it is, it would be divided by 15. Okay, and now let's go ahead and see it on the browser. Okay, yes, on the browser it's working perfectly, as you can see. Okay, perfect. So the next thing we want to do, change this text and show the text dynamically. Okay, all right, so now our text is over here and it's in a variable called places. Okay, so we need to use this places variable, and before we do that we also need to take care of the slider, because for now we need to keep track of which slider is being showed and use that index, sliders index, and pass it to a function or a loop, and then we will match this index with. Okay, so we want to show this text on the slider. We need to keep track which slider is being played and then use that index on the text. Okay, so let's go ahead and do it. The first thing we want to do, there is a property called onPageChanged. We'll call this one, and it takes two parameters. First one is index, the other one could be anything. Okay, for now we'll use the first one. Okay, now because we want to know which index is being played or which slide is being played and change the text immediately based on that, so we need to use a setState function over here, because if we find or change a condition within setState, then it will cause a re-render. So all we do, we'll create a variable which is called a current, and then we'll supply this index to current. Okay, and if you don't know what is current is being declared over here at the top. Okay, all right, so over here, as the slide is changing, so it's getting new index every time, and that index is being passed to this current. Now because current is being changed all the time, it would call re-render wherever we use this current variable. Okay, so we want to use this current variable over here. Okay, and here let's call the list of places, and then within it we pass our index. What is our index? That's called current. Okay, now let's save it and run it. Okay, perfect. As you see, now it's working. As the images changes, they're showing the new text. Okay, now let's go ahead and see it on the browser as well. Okay, perfect. So it's working on the browser as well. Now let's test it one more time. So it's pretty responsive, as you see. Okay, all right. So here's the thing. So if you liked this video, don't forget to give me thumbs up and share this video with your friends. And if you have any questions, you can leave a comment below. At the same time, next we'll see how to create dots here or buttons here, so that you can click on the button and you'd be able to run this slider on clicking on the button as well.